on salaries and how ministries run. Really, here there are tough times in the ministries. I have not had proof yet that this quarter, it looks like they won't be releasing any monies to the ministries. Around the region, we had a stable election in Kenya. There were contests, all right, but they used the systems like electoral commission. Then eventually those who had issues with the election went to court. The most significant thing is that the situation remained stable, and they used the political as well as judicial means to reach resolution of whatever issues raised, which was significant. Of course, on the international front, we've had the war in Ukraine and Russia. It hasn't ended yet, and one doesn't know exactly how it is going to be conducted and the impact it will still have before it ends, internationally as well as regionally and on the country at the country level. And the struggle, that's again global, and the contention on environmental issues. Europe and America and other, have been conducting manufacturing on a large scale using fossil fuels. Have got their own version of what needs to be done. Africa seems to be taking a stand and saying you must pay for the costs of the damage to the environment before you bring us on board to start going into shifting from fossil fuels into new energy sources, clean energy sources. We'll wait and see how that debate unfolds. The Instable Congo, I think the DRC was brought into East African community this year, which is good. We thank God for that. There are issues there of M23 and all other rebel groups that are there. EAC seems to be coming together, intending to deploy a force which is being put together, but also simultaneously trying to resolve the conflict through diplomatic means or through negotiations. We hope they succeed on that front. The rest, of course, is contention internally. We have got a regime which seems to say one thing and do another. That's contention that will be resolved at some point, without doubt. And therefore, those who want change will have to keep organizing until we realize our objectives. I think basically that would be summary. There have been many coups on the African continent. I think this year, 2022, maybe 2 or 3 or so, which is quite unfortunate. There was also a war which erupted between the Tigrayans and the Ethiopians. I think they're trying to handle that. We've seen South Africa recent, about 2 weeks ago, oust the sitting president. Looks like that's the 3rd one. That's not something that commonly happens on this African continent, where presidents are simply ousted by their own parties. It's an interesting development. Yeah, so far. Maybe that's the summary I can give.
Okay, thank you, General. That pretty much gave us an overview of the year. Like we are. Please mute. Yeah, like we had said, that pretty much gives us an overview of the year. I see a number of requests for the microphone. Like I said at the start, this is going to be more about the audience. So if you have a question, just note it. We are going to bring you on board, and then you have a question in a very short time. So, but before we get there, I just have 3 things that I want your quick opinion on, General. The first one, I want to understand what were your resolutions at the start of this year, personal resolutions and the party's resolutions, because I'm sure you know that we're privy to that information, and how far have you fared in achieving those resolutions, both as a party and as the individual, one of the party leaders in Uganda.
On the side of the organization, our focus was to continue doing what we were trying to do in 2021. We had just recovered from the electoral process. We wanted to embark on the building of grassroots structures, continue mobilizing for resources, and basically that has been our focus, organizational work. We've embarked on it. We have not achieved what we had hoped to, basically because the biggest challenge we still face is logistical. And we'll continue because we are a disciplined team of leaders. We continue operating within our means. Whatever challenges we meet, we never let them destabilize us from our focus on our set objectives. So there would be delays without doubt, but we are not perturbed. We'll continue focusing on that. Personal objectives, there are some I can mention, the others I may not. But maybe one that summarizes even the others I wouldn't mention, to maintain discipline and focus and not lose focus and continue doing whatever I have to do to operate and contribute to our existence as a people. And through the organization, others are issues that will deal with my private life, my family. I also maintain discipline and focus in regard to that, to see that we achieve what God purposes us to achieve in all areas, in the family area, in the public area of building Alliance for National Transformation as a public institution. Yeah, so much as there are many challenges, we are not perturbed. We keep focused. We keep, moving. There's nothing which shakes us, whatever direction it comes from.
Okay, that's very encouraging. Now, the second thing is we saw the merger, maybe should I call it the agreement between the Democratic Party on the one hand, an opposition party, the key opposition player, in the name of Honorable Norbert Mao and some of his lieutenants, and the NRM on the other side, led by President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, on the other side, coming together, saying they're going to work together. And as a result, Norbert Mao has since been appointed Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. I saw him representing the president at the anti-corruption celebrations today. And of course, there have been issues that have arisen. The president saying one thing after he was asked about the part that Mao talked about of succession with a Kenyan journalist. And so basically, what do you make of the agreement between the Democratic Party and the NRM? And is that something that at any point you think that the Alliance for National Transformation can ever consider?
As I mentioned, the time when Honorable Norbert Mao made that move, I was asked and I said that it looks like the path Honorable Mao and the DP leadership had taken is quite a slippery path. It's quite uncertain. They are capable leaders, they are intelligent leaders, they are able to make analysis, all right. But the worry I do have is that the partner they have decided to work with is absolutely unpredictable, and it would be very difficult to trust him in terms of whether he would gain at some point, if there's gain for him and the regime at any point, if there's change in the environment where he finds that he no longer has any gain from the partnership, they'll be cooked. And therefore, we just have to give them the benefit of doubt. If they fulfill what I have heard Honorable Mao mention, that they are purposed, or they have purpose to engage so that they can put off a negotiated settlement or a transition, then time will have absorbed them. But if that is not achieved, because the other side is not necessarily interested in that, which I suspect from my own standpoint to be the case, then at that point, I think it would be clear or become self-evident that the move was problematic. I think it would also cost them a lot politically. If this regime was to say implode or collapse when they are in that kind of arrangement, they would be wrapped up in whatever mess would happen out of that. So we just have to give it time, because none of us knows exactly how change is going to happen, because it could take any direction. It could be smooth if God is kind to us, but it could also be messy. But we just wait and keep doing all things that we have to do and see how it unfolds.
Okay, that aptly answers it. Before I bring the final.
You asked about whether Nationhood. It's not. We basically, as Nationhood, basically don't trust General Museveni and the regime. We've studied them for a long time. We don't trust them. We don't trust their word. And two, our belief always, us as individuals, a number of us, but also as an organization, we believe that for us to engage with this regime, you have to have leverage. If you don't have any leverage, and you enter any discussions with them, that means you just be depending on their goodwill, which we believe they don't have. So if we know that they don't have goodwill, and we don't even have leverage yet, what exactly is that kind of situation which you are engaged in trying to negotiate? It becomes very, very problematic. So we continue building ourselves, our organizational capabilities, our base, in terms of the strength of our grassroots structures, and we'll continue building and keep watching the situation as it unfolds.
Okay, thank you, Geno. We have your word on that. Now, for those who are joining us on Twitter Spaces, this conversation is also running live on YouTube and on Facebook. The advantage with joining it from that side is that you get to watch the video version of it. There's a video of Geno Mugisha Muntu answering these questions, so you can even see his facial expressions. There's a lot of communication in that. And for those who are joining us the other side, this conversation is also running live on Twitter Spaces. In case you just want the audio version of it, not the video, you just log on to Twitter, search the Alliance for National Transformation Twitter space, Twitter handle, and then you will see the purple ring that can enable you to join the conversation. We are grateful for all that have joined us from wherever you've joined us. Like I said at the start, this is going to be mainly audience-centered. Now, and for this particular session, I'm going to put my final question to Geno Mugisha Muntu and then start giving out the microphone. I see a couple of people have asked for it. I even implore more of you to ask for it so that you can ask the questions. So finally, in this session, we've seen perhaps unprecedented. We had elections in this country only last year, but it has been like this is more or less an election year. The final part of this year has had electioneering, perhaps to a level not seen in many years. We've seen it implode, people coming out. The NRM seems to be no longer reading from the same script, with some members taking swipes at it, some other members being pushed to defend. I heard that they issued a statement saying that there should be no more electioneering. They first let the party perform its duties and stuff like that. Then today I saw a group called, I think, Office of the National Chairman, that issued a statement and said no one can stop them from mobilizing, or they only pick instructions from the chairperson, who is the president. What does all this electioneering say about us as a country? What is this something good for us, or is this something that a trend that we should be worried about?
Well, the current political trend is kind of worrying in a sense, more so because of what's happening within the regime, because the party that runs government you want to have trust that it is stable and that it will maintain stability in the country. When you see cracks in a ruling party, you get worried because one, we have weak state institutions. Civil service is weak. The police is in a weak position. The army, which has been more or less the mainstay of governance, is itself in a very complicated situation. Some may challenge that, but when you have a uniform general out there and he's tweeting and the commander-in-chief is telling him, giving a public statement that he won't tweet again, and then you see the general saying, I will tweet, I am, old enough, and then you don't hear any response from the commander-in-chief, and it goes on and on and on. That, most people may not recognize that. That is something that, is not ordinary, it's not normal. And, uniformed officers and men, they are human beings. I don't think that some of these things escape their attention or don't rub their feelings one way or another. It is a situation that can only happen in, what is very, it's really very painful to say. It can only happen in a banana republic. I wouldn't have wanted to say that about ourselves, but where we have degenerated to that level, So, but we keep watching and we keep waiting to see. And as long as there are contradictions within the ruling party, the politicking is going to continue. If anything, I think it's going to intensify. If we had a stable country, if we had operated to a level where we would have built a culture of trust in the constitution, then there would be no unease at all, because everybody would know that, what, if change is in the constitution, the methods of change or the systems of change are embedded within the constitution, nobody would, bother at all. They would know that if this was to happen, then that would be the process to be followed. But I can tell you, if anybody did a poll to ask Ugandans, as those who believe that the constitutional process is what would be followed, in case, for example, the president, for any reason, is no longer in the seat of the presidency, I doubt whether out of 10 people you'd get more than 2 or 3 who would think that that's the process that would work. So on one thing, we have the constitution, but we don't have a culture of constitutionalism. Everybody doubts that that's what would happen. That's not good for a country. So whatever contention there is within the movement, the more it spills out in the public, the more worry is going to be there, hanging there, in the minds of people, because internally within the movement, there's no consensus, even amongst themselves. So we just keep on the side watching what would be happening there. To me, as far as I'm concerned, those who believe in the qualitative change have to keep working day and night, organizing to build consensus, organizing to influence the public mind, organizing to create hope where there seems to be hopelessness, organizing to shed light where there seems to be darkness. So at the end of the day, because countries are not held together, by walls, they are not held together by anything physical. What holds the countries together is the will for people to live together amicably. What holds countries together is hope. What holds countries together is a common beliefs that are shared by the different people within a country. Now, such countries that have that, even when they hit a crisis, they will sail through it and get on the other end in a stable way. But when a country goes into a state of crisis, when there's nothing that binds the people together, the country can fall apart. That's why it is necessary for as many voices and there can be raised across different ethnic groups, across different religious groups, across different interest groups, professionals, business people, that look for what binds us together and talk to it and raise each other's hopes and focus ourselves beyond what could be a crisis, to focus beyond the dark times that we are in. Then even if we hit a crisis, we can get through it. There's no doubt about that. So it's not work that is like you put on light and it gets on. No, it has to be worked for consciously, in a focused, disciplined way, consistently, until we're able to build a network of people who have got common beliefs around common interests. And they can hold together. They don't even have to be in the same physical space. They can be scattered all over. But when in a situation of crisis, when they speak from the same script. And therefore, people will hang on to their word, more so if they are speaking the same language in terms of what they would be talking about. But if you have a country in a crisis and you have 100 different voices saying different things, the country can easily fall apart.
Okay, thank you for that response, General. So I'm going to bring in the audience, and I'm going to start with Hamza. But I'm going to request that you make your question as brief as possible, and unless you must, I'll limit you to one question. But if you can ask two, that's acceptable. But make sure that you're as brief as possible, so we allow more people to ask. And I will implore the audience that let's have more people requesting for the microphone, so I can give you the microphone to ask questions. Hamza describes himself as a member of the Nubian Advocacy Group, a Pan-Africanist, activist, independent, Ugandan, and East African. Hamza, please ask your question or make your comment.
Good morning, General. Nice to hear you again. And one addition, I'm a member of I'm a member of the Alliance from the inception. I live in the diaspora. I live in Washington, D.C. I think, General, one of your insistence is that we have support for our parties from the grassroots. And I believe in that model. But unfortunately, sometimes in the diaspora, we are unable to support the parties. And I think I'm coming in for the ANT side. The ANT website, we cannot contribute to the party using our cards. So I don't have the mobile money number in Kampala. It was switched off, so I'm unable to support. So if someone can have a look at that, that's just an administrative comment that I had. I believe the model that ANT is taking is the right way. It seems like most people are so fixated on taking off Museveni, but we're not looking at the after. What are we going to do after Museveni is off? And whereas I think we as ANT, we are doing things quietly, but I feel like this is the right way to go, because the NRM and the current ruling regime have destroyed Uganda fundamentally. So we need to build it from the grassroots up. And I think it's good to implore on Ugandans to get involved in the politics of our country. Now, that is all that I wanted to say. And thank you, General, for your comment.
Thank you, Hamza. Thanks you also for your interest in.
So I wanted to ask if you take the questions now as they come, or we first get them asked and then you take them at once.
As you prefer.
Okay, let's respond to them as they come then. You can start with Hamza.
Hamza, thank you first for sacrificing your time and also your commitment to the organization. I really hope that we will be able to get your contact, and then we can work on the administrative issue of how contributions can be made. And I agree with you entirely. You know, we are in a crisis as a people. I think one of the biggest damage General 7 has done to us as a people, as a country, much as the other issues we can talk about, like poor service delivery in education, in the health, and corruption. The biggest damage is the levels of moral degeneration. I know, and the impact it has had on the national psyche. You know, where you find people have been reduced to a level where they almost want to cease to believe in themselves, that with the right environment they can do things and prosper, that they don't have to beg, that the inherent within them are the same capabilities that are God-given, that all other people who prosper anywhere on this planet, that they do have, that they are not different from us. I think that's the most frightening thing. We know we are right now engaged in grassroots work, and people have completely lost confidence in us as political leaders. They have almost reached a point where they think that there's no politician who will tell you the truth. They think we are all manipulators. They think we are all driven by self-interest. They think we just want to cheat them. And that's why they keep saying that, you know, recently we met a group, and there's a lady who told us, you know, I won't be mentioning her name, that, you know, it is good we've met now. She said, I am waiting for you in 2026. You know one thing. I am not going to work for any individual. I'm not going to work for any organization until we sit down and sign an agreement and you give me my fee up front. You know, now and everywhere we go, almost the same sentiment. What does that mean? If that is not the deepest form of a crisis in a country, what else could there be? Because basically it means that if they don't have trust, that is likely that the moment Jerome 7 is out, which is inevitable, which will happen, and if there is any team which is not well organized to get in and start working towards the shift or building of a mindset, a new mindset, where people know they are capable, where leaders do things in a manner that rebuilds trust, and we have an increasing population. This month, 29th of November, they came out a report, I think it was the UN one, which indicates that we have hit 49 million. 25 years, we are supposed to have hit 100 million. Now imagine when we get 100 million, there are 100 million mouths to feed, 100 million lives to take care of in terms of education, good, with good standards, good healthcare services, infrastructure in all ways, water provision, road networks, transportation, and all that. And then you find that if by that time we have not reversed the trend in terms of governance, what kind of country are you going to be living in at that point? 25 years, just tomorrow. So to me, that is the biggest challenge that we do face at the level of belief in people, believing in themselves. Knowing that there's nothing that they cannot achieve. There's nothing that has happened elsewhere that they cannot do. And then deliberately created by those who are in governance because they just wanted to manipulate the public mind through buying them. You know, you crush a people's spirit, you cause their environment in which they operate to beg. The other day, I was frightened when I saw someone highly educated, you know, a professional. And someone kneels, they're not being paid from any single person's pocket, not even the president's pocket. Even when remuneration is given, it is from the public purse, it's from the taxes of people. But the mindset from which a person speaks, you know, like, you know, when you crush a people's spirit and they reach that point, it's quite frightening. And it's not something we should just simply dismiss. Yes, an individual, whatever is going to happen around that individual, that's just an individual. But it's really across board. Many people have reached that point. And therefore, it requires that we do everything humanly possible from all different areas where we are at and work to reverse that.
Okay, thank you, General. The next question I'll pick is from Willie, Mr. Masaba, who describes himself as an administrative clerk, communicator, moralist, forward for the truth, and says, I think his mantra, pain does nothing to man. Willie, please unmute and ask your question.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be on the platform, and thank you, General Muntu, for that kind of information you have put across. My question, actually not a question, but to thank you for the politics that you have brought on board about the mindset. We have been in the past 20 years, we have been in this politics of street and this kind of pulling the ropes, but for now that we have got things a new relief, and now I thank you for that. My other thing is, how is the grassroots consultation going on? Because like this side of Uganda, as I said, we have been in this politics of pulling ropes. We still lack that kind of sensitization in the community, deep in the villages. So I would suggest if we can make like a regional groups, regional WhatsApp groups, district, sub-counties or villages, so that we can be able to connect and pass the information of ants as a party. Because for the years and the generation as we are moving on, we have seen like the government has it did it, I think, deliberately killed the civic education where people were now talking to, they don't know even the reason why they go for vote. They don't know who to vote for. So all this coming together, we need this kind of togetherness, and you have to, as I said, if you can, we can form these groups and be more on such platforms on internet, Facebook, YouTube. We pass this information for the mind so that people can think, and we live along this politics of populism and being radical, so that we come to the gentleness as the party, as the anti-party describes. Thank you very much. And what are the strategy? What is our strategy as for now for 2026? Because now 2 years down the road since we've been in the election, and we're running like 2 years now to the next election. Thank you.
Thank you, Willie. The general is going to answer that. And I implore other people, please ask for the microphone. We want to make this more about the audience.
Yep, I didn't catch the name of the colleague who just finished speaking.
His name is Willie.
Willie, thank you for the question. Yeah, the engagements that we are involved in, they are not big engagements. We normally meet with smaller groups. In physical terms, it's not taxing. The most taxing aspect of it is, or the most exhausting thing is to meet people on a daily basis who have lost hope. And then you spend more time trying to, discuss with them to know that there's nothing they can't achieve. That's the most exhausting. And you keep meeting it over and over. And they seem to think that this situation is impossible, it can't change. It's quite exhausting, but by God's grace, we keep on marshalling the energy to keep at it. And that's our intention, to keep at it without giving up. Because some of us who are exposed, who are educated, we have traveled all over the world. And in comparative terms, there aren't many countries that are as blessed as our country is. You see countries that don't even have half of what we have, and they are developed and they are stable. But you know that the critical factor in their development process is the human factor. Now here, you find we are blessed. We have got, a country which is, fertile soils, different seasons, but largely good weather, riches underneath. They are, still discovering mineral resources. We now have even oil. There are even resources which are not yet discovered, but which will be discovered. But at the center of all that, if we don't have a well-developed, disciplined, and focused human resource, all that will remain untapped, or actually even become a danger to us. I mean, we have seen countries which are well-resourced, and when they don't have the human factor that is able to utilize those resources, that have got a capability to negotiate on behalf of the countries and to lead in a responsible way, at times the resources can be scarce. So when you reflect and you see the human resource that is supposed to stand in the gap and turn the direction of politics in the country, and then you keep hitting, getting into situations. One, in the rural areas, of course, the rural areas, many people don't have, they are not positioned to create change at a national level. They are the best. They're a very significant factor. But because of the breakdown of trust, because of the negative trends at the level of leadership at the national level, they have lost trust in politicians, all of us at the top. And then you look at the top and you're looking for people who can band together and recreate that hope. And recreate that hope. When you go into the elite, the people involved in politics, the people in business, the people in the professions, and you also find that there are a significant number of people up there who also think that the situation is impossible, it can't change. It can be quite frustrating to a large extent. It can also be exhausting. But really, this is our country. And there are many people who can participate in turning it around. And they need to operate from whatever vantage point they are in. If they're in the business community, let them operate from there. If they're within the operation, the profession, let them operate from within their professions. If they are directly in politics, let them continue doing what they have to do. So people who are like-minded, who know that this situation is temporary, it can be changed, it will be changed, and also in the process, build a significant number of those who can go into leadership and become instruments for positive change. Let's not give up. Whoever is wherever they are, let them work through their sphere of influence and keep on raising hope and belief that we as a people, as Ugandans, exploiting the opportunities that are God-given, that we can turn around this situation and do things which will raise this country to a point where all citizens will benefit, where there will be equal opportunities, where there will be justice, where there will be fairness. That's the only way. I don't see anything that can be changed unless there is an will within, on our own front, the domestic front. Nobody's going to come and change things from outside. So thank you for what you are doing so far. Keep linking up with other people who are like-minded, and we'll keep on building until we build a critical number of people who can turn around this situation.
Okay, Rangoma, it's time for you to ask your question, make your comments, just unmute and do that.
Yes, I can.
My name is Rangoma from Central District, and I'm glad to hear again with Mr. Muntu, Muntu. I'm a member of National Transformation, right from Central District. Then my question was about the politicians of Uganda. We have lost hope from you people as politicians. But what we are doing as we members of National Commission, what are we doing? What should we do? Such that the people can gain trust in us. One. I would like to ask the General, it's only one. we have got those so-called educated people. Who are saying that politics is a dirty game, is for those people who are uneducated. We stand up as politics as something that's bad. How are you willing as a group of, and you will turn up that group so that they can teach in politics? That's one. And then, and my second question to the general is that the good as all the country, as long as they have lost hope from the president, you welcome to the government officials, the corruption that is in our nation, the education sector, how it has fallen down. How will give the citizens of Uganda and get trusted the politicians? And I'm glad to be here. I want to tell the citizens of Uganda, everyone it belongs to you to talk about. This is the direction we should take. There's nothing like going on the street. Let's take the direction which our movement is taking, so that we can get up with the clear politics in our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rwangoma. General is going to respond to that.
I think, Mr. Rwangoma, what you need to do is whatever you are doing, if you are in business, wherever you are, ensure that you become trusted by the people you operate within. If you are within a circle of students, build trust. If you are operating in a circle, build trust. If you're operating in a business and you work with other people, build trust. Now, when people trust you, then you can become a change agent, influence those around you. And when someone else also does the same thing, someone in a church builds trust, someone in a mosque builds trust, someone in a cultural setting builds trust, someone in a market builds trust, and they all become part of the political process, then people will follow them. And then wherever they go and they become a majority, people will believe in wherever they are, wherever they stand. Because none of us is going to give what they don't have. Even political organizations. A political organization in this country, which builds consistently around attracting people who are trustworthy, if they reach a point out of 10 of them, 7, 8 are trustworthy, they will change the nature of politics in this country, because it means that it is a party that is built on integrity and trust because of the critical number of leaders in it. Before that happens, if no party, for example, is able to raise the members who have integrity within its leadership, to the extent that you find at least out of 10, 6 or 7 or 8 are trustworthy, that party is not going to change the nature of politics. Yes, it will get into power, yes, but on the balance of forces, if you find 6, 7, 8 are people who are driven by self-interest, and therefore their main intention to go into politics is to loot, that party can't change a country. It will be in power, yes. I mean, now we have, the NRM has got leaders all over, spread all over the country at all levels. But the culture, internal culture within NRM is a culture of looting. Therefore, that's why they cannot change this country, whatever happens. But if miraculously, the balance of force in NRM turned around overnight, and we woke up one day and we found that actually, overnight, 8 of them are trustworthy, I can tell you, you'd be shocked. You see them completely make a 360 turn round. But that's not going to happen. Something that only happened through hard work. Right now, they have been captured within that culture where they are at. There are still men and women inside it who are honest, who have integrity, but they are the minority. I've been asking questions of peasants and people we meet, and ask them the current situation on the balance of forces out of 10 people in leadership in the ruling party. How many do you think are honest? How many do you think are buffering? And they keep saying almost the same. They say, but about 8. Some of them say 9, and the 2 or 1 are honest and men and women of integrity. It is surprising that the response is almost uniform. So that means it is not something that is lost on 2 people. So what kind of party can change that situation? It is for every party to work day and night to attract men and women of integrity. Men and women who believe in transparency, who therefore, when they are in power, are going to be doing things in the interests of the people. Because when that happens, it's not even in conflict with them getting access to resources themselves, but through the right way. That's the only solution. There's no other.
Okay. A reminder that this conversation, if you're joining us via Twitter Spaces, is live on YouTube under the Alliance for National Transformation YouTube channel. The same conversation is being relayed live on Facebook Live under the Alliance for National Transformation channel. So if you're on YouTube, please just subscribe to the channel. If you're on Facebook, give us a following. If you're on Twitter, follow the account for Alliance for National Transformation so that you can be notified when we have future conversations, when we have other engagements organized by the party. Now, let me pick a question from YouTube for you, Geno. There's a lady there called Nyakato Usoke. She's joining us via YouTube. It says, Geno, you should comment on Geno Kahinda Otafire, who is the Minister of Internal Affairs, directive to have opposition leaders investigated over parading of border, I'll put that in quotes, border accident victims at the Nairobi Human Rights Conference that happened last month. I think the General said that there should be investigation and a probable charge of treason. So she wants to hear your comment on that. Yeah, if you could just respond to that.
The background of that conference, one, is that it was a remembrance of victims of November. You remember when Honorable Bobby Wine was arrested in Luka, and then the uprising, and then the suppression by the police and army, and the many people died. Now, it is in remembrance of that conference was held in Nairobi. One significant thing is that two things, basically, that the regime never set up a commission of inquiry as to what happened. That's one. Two, that a conference like that could not be held here in Uganda. That it was hosted by the Kenya Human Rights Commission itself is significant. That the Human Rights Commission of another country within the region accepts to host that. That should tell these people sitting in the regime something. That's one. It was a remembrance of the people who died in November. I don't remember, was it 17th, 18th, or 19th, around that. So the question is, are there people who died? Absolutely. There are people who died. Even the regime, there's no contention. The regime has come up, it has admitted that there are many people who were even victims of random shootings, and basically no inquiry was set up to investigate. So that we were invited and we attended. First, we had to stand with the NUP because we don't believe that what happened should have happened. I have a personal view on that. I don't have evidence for it, but I have a feeling it was almost a setup into which NUP walked into. I don't have evidence, but I can do analysis from the sidelines and watch the pre, the during, and the post. Therefore, for anybody to say that we should be investigated is just losing sight of the main issue. The main issue, it was the remembrance of the victims of November. That the regime did not set up any, inquiry, public inquiry. And two, that that kind of event cannot be hosted here in Uganda. The causes of that is what needs to be investigated, not us who went to stand with the victims. you know, and okay, there are a number of people who have been victims of the torture on over different periods. Yes. So if they got one or two whom they think had accidents, like there's contention around that, the issue is November. What happened? Why did so many people die? That's the question. That's what they need to investigate. I mean, you can imagine, even those of us who went to the bush, one of the clear things that we used to read in history at that our age was the many people are young, so they can't relate. One of the things that was really a dark mark on the first UPC government was the Nakurabye massacre. General Museveni himself talked about it a number of times. And the Kisubi incident, it keeps popping up in the pre-71 UPC. So these people in government know that history. They are old enough to know that history. So if they're also creating dark spots in the history of the existence of NRM, they should deal with it. You know, should deal with the truth. You know, if they are not able to handle the truth, that's their business, not ours. We will keep standing with the victims.
Okay, that should answer it for our friend Nyakato Rusoke, who asked via YouTube. Now, let's bring in Mr. Tutsi Chris. He describes himself as a Ugandan, believes in serene living, life will teach you everything is his mantra. Tutsi Chris, please unmute and ask your question. Yes, I can hear you. Just be more audible. It seems a bit low though.
These liberators, their story started with a lot of aura, the enthusiasm. When you start their story as they came to liberate this country and where we are now, sometimes you become convinced that we lost it. The type of journalist politics, General Mugisha Muntu, it's very hard that it is applicable to today's politics, summarized by Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Mugisha Muntu is a type of a person. I don't know how I can explain him. His way of handling things, I may think it may not apply under the leadership of Yoweri Museveni. There's so many that call him a dictator. For me, I don't think that he's a dictator. That he's a person, he's just a selfish person. But all dictators work for their countries. He's not a dictator. So, Mugisha, my question that I want to raise to him is, all have been said to Muntu. Everything, I have said everything. I strongly believe that where you are now should have been done some 20 years back. Don't you think it's too late to use the channel we use? That's one. Secondly, General Muntu, when you see what is going on, possibly today, the tweets from the succession story that have just been moved on and moved on and moved on. Now you see, it actually shows us that the family, when we wake up with have just been in the background, doing all of these
races that have just come here, but the family now is becoming the problem itself. When you see the family every day treating, this is not a person that you just want to look at his street and people say he's a drunkard. To me, I mean, say no. People should not take it for granted. And on the other hand, I don't think that genocide and genocide, as people think that they have failed on this on their time, it is actually very loud. These are the politics that we have just used for many years. Genocide and the family are behind the fan and these streets. You see the scenario when the people about Kenya. The next day was promoted. Just to give the shape that people who are hoping for the next elections to come and people come to contest. I just feel that these elections are here. Furthermore, we have more races here. The election that the resources are splashed every day. And nothing comes out because they know who's going to. They have their people to step up. If General comes in election, I don't say that his people have to go outside and they start, no matter they are going to look for their leaders. No, there are variables. Then the sun looks to the perspective of the whole person.
Okay, Tutsi.
The way he's doing his things, and where we are, the type of politics we are heading on is very. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Tutsi. I hope the general got that question, and it's time to respond to it now.
We believe in the methods that we use. I know there are many people who don't believe in the same methods we use, but we are not worried about that because we know that people have different approaches to resolving issues. We believe in the methods we are using. We consistently remain focused on these methods. We believe they do work, and in their own time, they will work. So we are not going to change methods. We can make adjustments, but the same approach all throughout. We believe in grassroots work because we believe in attracting people who have integrity, people who are responsible in the manner in which they would manage national resources or managing all other affairs that affect humanity. So we'll keep building that capability because we know it's what is lacking and is what is required. So nothing is going to divert us from that route. We have chosen it deliberately, consciously, and we'll keep at it. Two, yeah, there's contention within those who are in the regime. I don't know what is sparked off all the confusion that seems to be happening. One, you hear debate. Some think it is deliberate, that it is a strategy. I don't know whether it is a strategy, whether it is confusion that has set in amongst them, amongst the ruling party. Whatever it is, if it is not well managed, it could be a recipe for disaster. So we ourselves who are not inside, and therefore there's nothing we can contribute from within. The only thing we can do is to keep organizing ourselves wherever we are. I had already spoken about this, to ensure that hopefully there can be a smooth transition. We all pray for that, we'll keep working towards that. But that in the event that anything outside the ordinary was to happen and we slide into a crisis, even crises are managed by people who are conscious of how to manage them, to walk communities or countries, in this case, out of such crises. So it also needs a preparation of mindsets, a preparation of how we network, a preparation of how we can, speak from the same script, and therefore ensure that basically when a regime like this has lost direction, basically the population is on its own. So we have to operate almost from that understanding. People want this country that is stable, that is managed well. We need to operate from almost a mindset that we're on our own. Because if you see those who are supposed to be responsible in managing power are rogue elements in a manner in which they operate, what other conclusion should we reach? You know, when you clearly see that the people who are in power are driven by selfish motives, and they clearly don't seem to recognize that the path they have chosen to walk can bring danger to the country. You hear them denying, you hear them thumping their chests and saying all kinds of things. And well, we've seen that. We have seen many leaders who thump their chests and say nothing can happen. We've seen it in Asia, we've seen it in Arab countries, we've seen it in Africa, we've seen it in Latin America. In all such countries, change always happens. And the question is, there must be people who recognize that those who are chest thumping, that they always come to an end. Regimes come to an end. And therefore, our main focus is, okay, what happens? The post-management. When an end happens to a regime, what happens? It can only, anything good happening thereafter must be out of conscious, deliberate, focused, consistent actions of a number of people who recognize that kind of situation. That's where we are at as Alliance for National Transformation. That's why we keep on trying to attract people also think like that, who have reached that conclusion, who are not immersed in the problems we are in only, and they don't look outside that. There's a human tendency for people to be so sucked into the current environment that they don't even maybe think that they'll be out of it, and therefore work simultaneously as they work to get out of the current challenges, also work on how they will manage after they've gotten out of the crisis situation which they would be. We look at the current situation, we work towards hastening and bring an end to it, but also how to manage thereafter. And there must be deliberate, conscious actions by those who recognize that, and therefore don't lose hope to see wherever you are. Don't lose hope. I mean, inherent within every human being is the capability to manage however difficult the situation is. That's why people who succeed in whatever area of endeavor, in sports, in business, in the military, in politics, wherever you find people who succeed, they all operate from that same mindset.
Okay, let's bring in Mr. Biagwa, who describes himself as honest with learning. Mr. Biagwa, please unmute and make your comment or ask your question, sir.
First of all, I'll first appreciate General Muntu. Thank you for loving our country. Thank you for serving us. Thank you for guiding us. I strongly believe you having been one of the liberators of our country, you know well our history, and you understand well that we really, after liberating the country, we got liberation, but we lost the cause. But now the question stands. It's now the time to fight for the cause. How are we going to do it? Because I'm so sometimes we lose hope when we see what is happening in the country, and you, part of you liberators, you're the one who is showing us that the country is safe, the country is good. Instead of doing what you were meant to do, you're doing the opposite. Then that comes a problem when we also don't believe in some of you. Yes, I strongly believe in you because I know your leadership. You helped our army when we were young and we were successful in it. But my question stands. As ANT, what are we going to do to build these roots in the villages? Because I strongly believe this thing of saying that youth is having a larger percentage of population, yes it is. But I can say the educated youth, not this education of reading and passing examination, education of understanding and of wanting to know
where and what our country needs and where we should live, we should be going, that number is still low. Because you will find us in conflicts and whatever. And then my question is, how are you going to help us? Let these people understand ANT, let these people understand what is the quality of the change we need. Because I agree, we don't just need change, we need qualitative change, as you always say. Then my question stands. Now, for example, when I'm from Kisolo, it is worse when you come here to Kisolo, you find people praising this NRM regime. But the question is, they are not fed by the real information. What they get is what they take. And the truth is, we cannot ask for someone for what he doesn't have. We cannot ask for transformation or for development through Museveni, because now Museveni has nothing to offer to us. Then, as ANT, what is that plan that you're standing on to point to these rural areas? Because for us, with smartphones and what we shall keep the information, we shall try to spread the information. And the leaders down there on the roads, the truth is they are not doing their work. I can't tell you this because I've been there in my village. I stayed there during the campaign period. The only question is,
okay,
how are you going to do this to the rural areas? Thank you.
okay. General, you can respond to that.
You know, people who want positive change, people who want qualitative change, those who are in Alliance for National Transformation, those who are wherever they are, they don't all have to be in the same organization. Some of them don't even have to be necessarily in political parties. Build influence around yourselves. Because at the end of the day, what we are looking for is good governance. The only problem is people only feeling confident when they are in large numbers. I think that is the biggest debilitating factor to many people. People don't understand that when you have integrity, when you believe in values like honesty, like transparency, like equality before the law, like being just, that in itself gives you a power which most people don't recognize. You become a source of, you can become a source of hope. You can become a source of light amidst darkness. Many people don't understand what it means, that kind of inner strength. If your inner strength is built on those value systems, and you're determined to become an agent of influence wherever you are, in a school, in a church, in a mosque, in a circle, in a cooperative society, in whatever interest group you are in, and you keep at it, working day and night, eventually you keep enlarging your sphere of influence. Now, when you enlarge your sphere of influence and you team up with other people who are like-minded, then you keep on becoming larger and larger. Like the Bible says, be this for those who believe. It says, be the salt of the earth, be the light of the world. Now, when you put on a bulb or you have a torch in a dark place and you put it on, it creates impact because it creates light where there has been darkness. Salt, those who cook food, how much salt do you have to put in a drum of food to change its taste? Not much. That's what is required of change agents. Build first internally the belief systems that guide you in what you do, wherever you are, doing the right things. And then have no fear, even if you are not many in that sphere where you are, in that environment in which you are. Just do what is necessary to be done. Keep on influencing people to do the right things. You build their trust, build that sphere of influence, enlarge it. If you're in the village, do that. If you're in the parish, do that. If you're in a sub-county, do that. It already exists everywhere we go. We ask them, whom do you give the book for Mabugo? Because whenever there's a death, they put there someone whom they give a book. So we ask them, whom do you give it to? And the uniform, the response is uniform. They all tell you they look for their own most trustworthy person is the one they give that book. even when there's a wedding. Is the person whom they trust is the one they give that book. So we ask them, if that is what you do when it comes to weddings, when it comes to burials, you look for trustworthy people. Why is it different when you go into politics? I think people are also lost in a sense. You know, when it comes to politics, it's like they don't care. But yet politics are the center of our lives. Until the balance of forces is shifted in regard to the kind of people who are in politics, I can tell you we aren't going to see any, solution anytime soon. So our focus should be keep building those spheres of influence over and over until we reach that time when there's a shift. And once that shift happens, it doesn't matter even which party is in power, as long as it has shifted that balance of forces in the favor of people who want to do right, that organization will transform the country. For us, we are simply talking around a formula that we believe works. Whichever party applies it first will become the transformative agent that this country has been waiting for. For us in ANT, we concentrate on it, we work on it day and night, and we believe that by God's grace, we will succeed.
Okay, thank you. Chivuka, please desist from unmuting your microphone before you are allowed to speak. You distort the conversation. Once you're given a chance, stay mute until we ask you to speak. Okay, let's have a question from Mr. Nsubuga.
Thank you, host, for the opportunity. I wanted to ask General. I've been monitoring and seeing that there has been a mission, like a movement in ANT, reaching out to the grassroots leaders. I wanted to get it from him. When they engage the people, what is their response? Is there positivity towards the message of alliance? Do people receive the information? Do they receive it within good faith? Do they get to understand it? That's all I want to know. In this campaign they have been doing for reaching out to strengthen the grassroots structures of their party. Thank you.
Yeah, there is almost consensus wherever we go that there are problems in this country that are deep. There is consensus almost wherever we go, and that there is a need for change. Now, there are many who just don't think that change can happen because they think that politicians, all of us are crooks. That's what we have to work on. That's why, as more people are trusted in whatever locality they are in, need to step in. Because the more they see people who are honest, wherever they would have been. Because if someone was a headmaster in a school and they knew he managed a headmaster or headmistress of a school, and they have trust that this person managed the school funds very well until retirement. If someone was a district engineer and they know that he really spent every coin that was meant to manage roads, they did that. If someone is wherever they are, in a mosque, in a church, and they have dealt with the development funds of the mosque or the church, and people trust them, then they need to bring that influence into the political organizations. And that's the only way you can now turn around that situation, where people think that all of us as politicians are simply driven by self-interest. It is tough work, but there is no other way out of that. So we have chosen to take the route we have taken, not because it is easy, but because it is the right route to take. And we just do everything humanly possible, as long as God gives us life, to ensure that we keep recreating hope where it has been lost. And wherever we find a level of frustration, to work with people until they recover, because it is within every human being to recover even from hopelessness, to recover from frustration. And the only method that is used is through words, engagement, discussions. That's why you find even people who have psychological problems, the easiest solution really is through, psychotherapy, psychiatrists sit with them, listen to them, discuss with them, show them possibilities, show them people who have gone through the same challenge, how they have walked out of it, you know. And you find that someone who had been a little bit destabilized now becomes stable because they have regained hope. You know, we can't escape that. We can't escape that. Personally, I don't see any other route other than engagement. And are there honest men and women in this country? There are many, in plenty. So it's a question of attracting them to engage more, not to remain outside, frightened as the crooks run a country, and then the people only remain complaining. You know, every society deserves the leaders they get. If the honest men and women step out, they create gaps. The crooks come in and they do whatever they do, always, wherever they are. It's not an issue of race or gender or religion. No, it's an experience all over the world. When crooks are in power, the people suffer. When men and women of integrity are in power, people rejoice, you know, because those people care. They do things out of care. They do things which bring services to people. There is no other solution.
Okay, we are getting done with the questions, seeing that our time is fast spent. So I'll pick MC Moshe. Please be fast. MC Moshe describes himself as a son, a brother, and a father. The Lord is my shepherd, he says. Life is not a scorecard, so I don't compare myself to anyone. Please, Moshe, make your question brief and fast.
Thank you so much. First of all, it's a pleasure to engage with Mr. Mugisha Muntu. And this is a very good intervention to get close to people and get to know what, you know, regular people think, and also hear from us. I consider myself to be part of the regular society. Speaking of solutions, we have been sharing ideas here, and most of the time as Ugandans, we are known to discuss things with the lack of physical interventions or sustainable solutions. Mr. Mugisha Muntu, you are seen as a person of integrity, and some people think that this could be a weaker point on your side because you don't seem to be as aggressive as it is explained in the Ugandan way. But in a sense, your conduct or the way you run your political career, I wouldn't want you to use it as a career because I don't know what reasons why you're in politics. But the problem we have as people who observe politics and people who love their country is that politics in Uganda is fronted by people who basically have different agendas. I wouldn't want to pinpoint people, but I can judge from their actions because if you are fighting an establishment of 40 years old, which Mr. Mugisha you serve, it is not something you expect to change by a tweet or a Facebook statement or an insult or things like that. There's been a lack of education on where the country should be or on a way forward for Uganda. All you hear about is the same old story, destructive narratives being thrown everywhere. And it seems like the opposition in Uganda doesn't even understand their genuine allies because you see them everywhere. For example, if I wake up one day and abuse you and curse you, you will be cursing me back. And then the next day I'll say, oh, I love you, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll be seen taking pictures with you. So there's lack of agenda. And a lot of people's lives have been exposed to risk because there's lack of strategic measures like a risk assessment strategy. How can we protect these young people? Because at the end of the day, if you're fighting for these young people's future, so you must protect them even against such a powerful establishment. So how do you help people? Is educate them for social responsibilities, for things that can structurally help the country to move forward. But I would like to ask you that what do you think is is keeping Uganda behind other societies in terms of progression politically and economically? Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the biggest challenge we have in our society and why we lag behind is the lack of leadership that is value driven. We have had leaders for 60 years, the majority of whom are driven by selfish motives. It's not that we've not had some good leaders who are driven by public concern. They have been there since the 60s. They have been in parties, they have been in governments, but they're always in a minority. We've never had a government, we've never had a party in which they are the majority. The solution lies in working towards changing that dynamic so that you get a party where out of 10, 8 leaders, 8 members are those who are driven by values. And the two, you can never 100%, you can never have 100%. That the two are the ones who are driven maybe by greed or whatever other motives may drive them. Once that shift of forces, once that balance once that shift happens in the balance of forces in any party, it doesn't matter which, that party will transform the country. Before that happens, it doesn't matter which party will be in power. The outcomes will be the same. And therefore, we as a people, Einstein said that to do the same thing, the same way, over and over, and expect different results is a sign of madness. Maybe we are infected by madness as a people. We have to change things. We have to change the manner in which we do things. What you put in is what you get out. The Bible says, whatever man sows, so shall he reap. You cannot escape that. It's a spiritual law, it's a natural law. And as to the issue of my methods or my style, Moshe said that people think that my methods or my style as an individual can't work. The Baganda have a saying that obugonvu bw'olujegere gemani garwo. They are talking about a chain of a bicycle or a border. You can see it is flexible. You can twist it around, but you can't easily break it. It's strong as a chain. And therefore, I know that the quite a significant part of the public need, what one would call charisma, or to project strength through what you say and how you say it. I have no quarrels with that, but I'm not tempted at all to move in that direction. What I do is to work with other colleagues to build a strong organization. And because I know a strong organization with teams of leaders, men and women from different ethnic groups, from different religious groups, from different backgrounds, different gender, working together around a common program, common belief systems, value-driven is the solution to this country. And that doesn't require me to posture as having strength or to, speak with the charisma. No. Building an organization requires different methods, different styles. That's what we are trying to do. And should we win in that regard, build a strong organization, by God's grace, once this party takes power, it will transform this country.
Okay, let's have the final question, and that is going to Mr. Chivuka, who describes himself as a politician, youth leader, director of Power Foundations Uganda, is going to have the privilege of asking that question. Chivuka.
Yep.
I'm from Tiana. My question is, now we have political parties that are in Uganda, and each political party has its own ambitions, whereby if we are looking at it this after 5 years, which we are looking at after going to the election. The previous years, tried for methods of taking out legislative powers. So I, for one, I think one of the things that made you go out of the way to see the defiance where the never have people defiance. My question is, you think that the project that you are laying, you need to make all of you need to make much impact taking away when you say you are not bias. I, for one, I don't think that take away my
Thank you, sir.
I had parts of Godwin. I had parts of his question. I had parts of Chibuka's question, not all. Did you hear it clearly so that you can repeat it?
Yeah, I did, but since he's still here, I can just bring him back. Chibuka, summarize your question.
There's a lot of background noise in his. Yeah.
Because I'm in town. My question is, do you think if we are to use that system that we're trying to lay in us, that it's not on defiance, do you think your aim of having that peaceful transition will it work on 117?
Okay.
Okay, I got it.
Thank you, Chibuka.
I got it. Yeah, to be honest with you, Mr. Chibuka, we had that contention within the party FDC, which I led for a while. I was one of the founder members, and we had a fight on our hands. Unfortunately, we were not mature enough to use both methods. There are those who believe that the methods we're using now, like NT, can't work, that it is simply a non-starter, and that the only way we could build a strong party is by removing Genome 7 and the regime through defiance or street actions. There are those of us who are saying, you know, to take him out off the top, you need to cut him by the roots, go down at the grassroots, ensure that you have built strong structures, attract good leaders at council level, at LC3 level, LC5 level. So that when you have a strong base, it is that strong base that would enable you to take the parliament and the presidency. We were never able to resolve that. So when we reached a point of crisis, when I lost an election in the FDC, and we discussed and said, so should we remain in until we take the presidency again and move the party in the direction we desire? We found that we were going to remain in a state of paralysis like we were in when I was the leader, with contention between two strategies. So we decided that, you know what, let's just leave FDC at peace. Let them use the vehicle of defiance. And if they're able to take out Genome 70 early enough, good, that's what everybody wants. But we said, let's also be at peace and build around what we believe in. Because until that point, and even until now, none of the two methods has worked yet. Defiance hasn't worked yet, and us who believe in grassroots work haven't succeeded yet. But one new thing is that we are not at war with each other in one vehicle, causing paralysis. So FDC is now at peace to build around defiance, and because there's no contention within it around strategy, if that enables them to build and hasten the exit of Genome 70, so be it. Everybody, all of us will congratulate them for that. And if they invite the rest of us, we can sit down and see how to manage power thereafter. But at the same time, we're at peace building around what we believe in. We're not fighting any other party. I think this is the best solution to that situation. So let's all keep watching and see what happens. But let's continue building around what we all believe in without attacking each other. I don't think that is necessary. Because as we as NT, we don't attack NUP, we don't attack FDC, we don't attack JEMA, we don't attack any opposition party. We keep building around what we believe in. We'd like all other parties concentrate on doing what they believe works. And then the rest will leave to time as it unfolds. Thank you, Mr. Chibuka, for that.
Okay. Thank you very much, General. You pretty much answered all the questions that we intended to get from the audience. There've been about 9 in all, and that's a lot of questions with just space. So let's wind up this by looking at maybe some of your projections for 2023. What are those things you're setting as targets for the party come 2023? If you could list a few of them for us, for the party members here and all.
We'll continue work on our organizational infrastructure. Continue with the exercise of grassroots branch building. Also attracting good men and women of integrity from different ethnic groups, different religious groups, different interest groups. So they all are built around the values that we believe in as an organization. And also to continue doing fundraising, because these kinds of exercises require resources, financial. So we'll keep on working on that as well. Work on internal communications so that we are constantly in touch with the branch networks at the local level, at the village, parish, sub-county, so that we know the challenges that are being faced, to know the desire of the people, and then we work towards the solutions to whatever challenges they have as a way of planning for the future. And also keep working on the diplomatic front and more or less, and training. We'll engage a lot in training. The training in leadership skills, the training in entrepreneurial skills for the leaders in the party at all levels. Basically, that's that.
Okay, and then given your experience as a politician, a former army commander, and by all accounts, given our average age as Ugandans, an elder of this country, what are your projections for 2023 generally, looking at Uganda? What are those things that if you look at the people here, you tell them that I think this may happen, I think this may be the areas to watch out for and things like that?
I think the issue of transition is going to occupy a lot of space, a lot of time, and in people's minds, I think it's going to be a central thing that is going to be happening. If there isn't adequate discipline in the regime in terms of allocating money to productive areas of the economy, and therefore, if they fail to recover the economy and generate more revenue collections, I think there might be a crisis deeper than what we see in the economy. And should that happen, regimes can politic, people who are in the opposition can also politic, and regimes can survive if the economy is doing well. And they can survive the political challenges. The regime can survive all nature of political controversies. But when the economy tanks, when people are hit hard, then things get in totally different directions. And should that happen, on top of already the uncertainty in the transition question, then 23 will be a very slippery road to walk. Those who will be walking that road, inevitably, which we all have to walk, if they don't have, as I normally say, shoes with a very strong grip, many will slide and fall. I hope the country will remain intact. I hope there will be a force, whether in government, whether outside government, that can keep holding this country together. If there was to be any crisis, we hope there won't be any. We keep praying to God.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, if a member of the audience here has a resolution of reading books next year,
Come again?
If a member of this audience has a resolution of reading books next year, could you just recommend for us some books, perhaps 5, 6 books that you think everyone here would be better placed if they read in the coming year?
Time to read big volumes, the Lee Kuan Yew book. I think 30 years of...
From third world to first world?
To third world, yes.
Third world to first world.
Yeah, third world to first world, yes. 30 Years of Singapore, I think, by Lee Kuan Yew. It's a large volume. It's a good, interesting book to read by those who are interested in development of countries. There's a recent online book that I read. That one is, you know, the 2 weeks in November. Godwin, you know about that. I never knew about that book until about a month ago. Thank you for sending me a copy. Those who want to understand what happens in transitions, many things happen on the surface, many background things people never get to know. It's an interesting book to read. Yeah, the Bible. Those who are believers, the Bible. I'm a believer, and I believe there are all kinds of solutions to every kind of situation. For those who are Christian, who are believers, yes, I would interest them in really reading deeply the word. You know, it's a book by Meredith, African. It's about I forget the title. I don't know whether you know it, Godwin.
Yeah, Martin Meredith. That should
Yes.
be. What is Africa's problem? No, I know it. Martin Meredith. I should share the title later on.
Yes.
Probably.
Shows you the challenges we face on the African continent from a historical perspective. Of course, I don't know which other. Yeah, so far maybe. Yeah.
I guess we can go with those.
Yeah.
But Martin Meredith's book is titled just a second. The Fate of
State
Africa.
of Africa. Exactly.
The State of Africa.
The State of Africa. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Actually, it's true. There is the Fate of Africa and then the State of Africa. Thank you very much, Jen. So, for all our audience, thank you for engaging us. We have these conversations monthly. Like I said at the start, these are organized by the Alliance.
There's also a book by Githongo. It's Our Time to Eat. Right? No. Is it Githongo?
It's Michaela Wrong, but on Githongo.
Michaela Wrong, but Githongo is one key person. You know, those are talking about transitions. You can have change in physical terms, but the situation almost remains the same. So you need to read that book by Michaela Wrong.
Okay. So like I was saying to our audience, thank you very much. You've been a very wonderful audience. Thank you for the questions asked. We deliberately made this about the audience, and so we accommodated as many questions as we could, given the time we had. It's coming to 7 p.m. in Uganda, and this has been a very wonderful engagement. So I'm going to give you, General, a minute to make your final remarks or conclusion, and then we call this a day. Thank you, Godwin, for hosting me. I'd like to thank all colleagues who have been on these different platforms for spending your time in this conversation, to thank all those who asked the questions, and to basically ask all Ugandans of goodwill, all men and women who believe in integrity, who believe in value-driven politics, not to give up, to keep influencing people around you, to ensure that we work together to have a better future than what we have now, and keep praying for the country that we can have a stable transition. And this being the last, I think, chat in this year, to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. May God richly bless all of you. Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year indeed. So for those that joined in late, or those that got off at some point, this conversation was running live on YouTube and on the Alliance for National Transformation Facebook page. So you could just go there if you missed any part of it, or if you want to get a recap of it, just find it there, and you'll have the chance to watch it in video form, the whole conversation we've had. Thank you very much. I'm grateful that we had these marvelous numbers joining us, and I wish you a good night, a Merry Christmas, and a prosperous 2023. God bless Uganda.